Good afternoon. The time is now 1:21 p.m. and a quorum of the board is present. State Board of Education regular meeting of May 11th, 2021 is reconvened. Marilyn, are there individuals who wish to address the board today during today's meeting?
I have one individual who has requested the opportunity for public comment, and I will review the rules. Mike, can you let them in?
Yep.
Is the caller there?
Hello.
Hi, this is Marilyn from the State Board of Education office, caller, and you are the person that has requested to offer public comment today. You'll have 3 minutes, and it's the practice of the board not to respond to comments during the public participation portion of the meeting. And we maintain an atmosphere of respect for all people, and disrespecting anyone by name or otherwise will be asked to cease. If you would please state your name and city before. Yes?
Hello?
Yes?
You said I can't state names. You said don't state names?
No, I'm asking you to please state your name and city and then any organization you may be affiliated with.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I have a hearing disability, so I'm sorry. It's kind of hard to hear.
Ma'am, if you need me to slow down or something is not clear, please feel free to interrupt me. If you can give your name and the place you live, then you can please provide your 3 minutes of comments.
Thank you. My name is Chelsea Wade, and I live in East Lansing, Michigan. I am the parent at McDonald Middle School.
Yes, please continue.
Good afternoon. My name is Chelsea Wade. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to comment today. Please check your email, as I have sent each board member a detailed timeline of events that include multiple attachments. An open letter from East Lansing High School students to East Lansing Public Schools, a list of broken policies, and copies of my daughter's assignment called A Look at Slavery. On March 12th, my husband and I received an unsatisfactory letter of apology signed by Superintendent Dory Lako, Director of Curriculum, Instruction and Assessment Glenn Mitchum, McDonald Middle School Principal Amy Martin, and 2 8th grade social studies teachers, Matthew Christian and Caitlin Newcomb. Please note that Ms. Lako, prior to becoming our superintendent, was our former Director of Curriculum, Instruction and Assessment. After several years in these positions, should be fully aware of what her teachers are teaching and the curriculum the students receive. On February 19, 2021, 8th graders received an assignment that was culturally and racially insensitive and inappropriate to give to any student, no matter the race. One question asked her how she would feel to sleep with a noose over her head. How is this creating a multicultural understanding according to the district policy section 7052, multicultural education, and section 5025, multiracial understanding? It doesn't. And this assignment was disgusting, and it brought me to tears to read my daughter's answers. They have violated multiple policies. Please see the news article McDonald teacher put on administrative leave following more controversial slavery assignments coming to light. Asking any student to find alternative perspectives to any historical atrocity is wrong. The people who signed the apology letter are the same people who conducted the investigation, and I'm supposed to trust that? Would you? The teachers was brought back to work yesterday. This is equivalent to the police policing themselves. Dr. Cassandra, Dr. Pugh, and all other board members, on behalf of my daughter, all children, current and former students who have been affected, families who have been hurt by the school's failure, Black families who have verbalized to me they're afraid to speak out due to fears of retaliation on their children at school, I am here to ask you today to conduct an immediate but not rushed external investigation starting at the top. Who approved this assignment? In 15 years, has there not been a review of the curriculums? Who is responsible? Someone has to be. Who is being held accountable? Someone has to be. This administration and this assignment almost destroyed my daughter's mental health. It forced her into developmentally and emotionally inappropriate circumstances, trapped because she was not sure how to respond, how her responses would offend her teachers, her peers, and impact her grades. She answered the questions in a way that would not be construed, and she would not be judged or stereotyped, which further violates policy. LACO stated in the Eli News that children who might not feel the effects of the assignment now could experience trauma later. I'll be the one to say that we feel the effects now, and we will definitely feel the effects later. As a Black mother of 6, 4 of which attend the school district, my husband and I's faith and trust in the school has been destroyed, and I have never felt so disrespected.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Thank you. I've said most that I had, the main important parts that I had to say. I just wanted to finish up and let everyone know that I will be following up. I appreciate your time. I will be following up with you as well as the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, the NAACP, the media, and multiple constituency groups, and all others that I have been in communication with who are prepared to engage in a peaceful protest if necessary. We need change and we demand change. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. This concludes public participation.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Ms. Wade.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a presentation by Easter Seals, Michigan. Today we have a presentation from Easter Seals, Michigan on the work that's being done in the schools throughout Michigan to provide mental health services to students who are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and other mental health issues due to the pandemic. This is an informational presentation and does not require board action. The presenters are Mr. Brent Worth, President and CEO of Easter Seals, Michigan, Ms. Uriel Stevens, Director of Family Services of Easter Seals, Michigan, Ms. Jennifer Thayer, Program Manager of Easter Seals, Michigan, Ms. Heather Wiley, Special Services Supervisor at Walled Lake Consolidated Schools, and Ms. Sue Benson, Program Director of Community Programs, Special Populations at Oakland Schools. There will be a PowerPoint presentation. Presenters, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Brent Worth, and I am the CEO, as was mentioned. And I want to thank Tiffany Tilley and the entire board for having us for this invitation and having us to be able to share our partnership and the timeline and our successes with you, with the school district. First up, I wanted to start off. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of Easter Seals, but maybe not everybody knows who we are and what we do. So I wanted to give a little history and then tie that into why our partnership with the schools have been such a success in tying together a community organization along with the schools to best meet the needs of the students. So if you want to click through, there you go. So this was the title that we chose, Building a Resilient and Healthy Future. You heard who your presenters are. I won't repeat those again. We'll just go through. So who is Easter Seals? Well, we've been here 100 years here in Michigan. In fact, we're on our 101st year. We started off in 1907 from a gentleman who lost his son during a car accident. And he noticed that there was really no special attention given to kids in hospitals, so he created a children's hospital. But during that time, he discovered that children with disabilities were often left in the hospitals and left out of being part of the public. So he created the National Society for Crippled Children. So that was our initial name. But during popular time of a campaign of really doing a fundraiser of selling seals, we adopted the name, during Easter time, we adopted the name Easter Seals. So that is our name today, and that's what we continue to choose with. Go ahead, Jen. So give perspective, I want to give, our purpose statement is Easter Seals Michigan works to change the way the world defines and views disabilities by making positive, profound differences in people's lives every day. And there's our vision statement, but we are our own separate 501c3. Go ahead, Jen, keep clicking. We're our own 501c3, so we're part of a national brand, but here in Michigan, we really evolved to being one of the largest behavioral healthcare providers here. We've served the state, like I mentioned, for over 100 years. We've grown to having over 500 employees and serving over 15,000 children's, adults, and families throughout the state. And we also fundraise to provide new best practices. And that'll come into play when we talk about braided funding in the future of this presentation. Primarily, we do cover the state of Michigan. Some of our services do cover the entire state, but where we have locations, physical locations, is demonstrated here, along with our school partnerships. And so a lot of them are in the Oakland County, Macomb, Wayne region, along with Flint and Grand Rapids. So like I said, we served 15,000 people last year, but you can see a large portion of that is children. So about 5,500 kids accessing our services were needed last year, and that continues to grow. The mental health crisis has only just began with as related to the pandemic. So to give another perspective, I mean, we serve 15,000 people from birth all the way to their senior years, specializing in mental health, but we also do a lot of maternal infant health, healthy interventions, services in Spanish, autism, trauma, etc. We have a large continuum of care. So from a clinical perspective, and again, why we feel we're a really good partner with the schools, we have over 22 prescribers, 250 licensed clinicians, and a total staff of 500 that continue to evolve and adapt to meet the needs of the community. During COVID, just as everywhere else, adapted to telehealth. And during that period, we found that a lot of the children and adults that we serve did not have access to the technology or broadband itself. And so we were able to facilitate lots of efforts to, through foundations and through other efforts for fundraising, to bring in iPads, to create new positions that are called telehealth medical assistants to actually teach people how to get the best out of telehealth. And in fact, we distributed about 500 iPads. And during the year, over 20,000 calls, about 22,000 seeking help. And we were able to get most of those into care within 10 days and about 80%. That was last year, even during the pandemic, and with the growth of about 10%. And we've also increased our outreach. Go ahead, Jim. And, our satisfaction is really high up there, and really proud of our satisfaction rates, even through the pandemic. And I give this to, a lot of people don't know exactly, again, who we are, but I want to give a high level perspective, when we approach the schools or the schools approach us, why we feel that we're good partners in braiding funding together. So now I'm going to introduce our Director of Family Services, Uriel Stevens, and she's going to talk about our evolution of school partnerships. Yuri? And Yuri was one of the ones on the phone. I don't know if she's able to speak through.
This is Marilyn. I'm told she's on, but it doesn't look to me like she is. So.
Okay, well, maybe then Susan Benson from Oakland Intermediate School District can begin with her piece from the partnership perspective.
Sure, absolutely. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having us all. As you can see from the partnership slide here, Easter Seals reaches a tremendous amount of school districts in Oakland County, and the ISD really depends so deeply, so heavily on the partnership with Easter Seals. But we've just highlighted a few of the districts that we work with right here. You can go to the next slide. And we wanted to highlight a couple of the partnerships that have worked in the past. Back in 2015, Oakland Schools partnered with Easter Seals to look at a suicide prevention grant. We knew that we couldn't do that alone. We knew that we depended on Easter Seals to be a key player in that, because they really provided the behavioral health component of this. And we looked to their ability to apply this to all of the 28 districts in Oakland County. It had to be a much broader focus that we were looking for, and of course they were able to deliver. We're going to talk a little bit more about our co-located services with Holly Schools. That's where we started. And since then, Easter Seals has been able to expand to 11 different school districts with co-located models that are truly growing every day. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how those came about. But I have to tell you, having staff who are trained, who are on site, means everything to districts. It is so much more than looking to your school social work staff or your school counselors, because we really need people who are experts in the field of mental health. And we have that partner in Easter Seals. I think Mr. Worth talked about our school-based services and telehealth, and everyone's adapting. We've all lived into the word adapt and leaned heavily into that, but Easter Seals has brought it to a new level. To be able to take telehealth to families who weren't equipped, who didn't have the technology, who didn't have the capability to carve out time and figure out how to do that so well, has truly been a lifesaver for so many families, to connect them in this time of crisis, in this time of unexplored territory. And we could not be more appreciative of that. And to be able to tailor our professional development with Easter Seals professional development, and to create consultation around what districts are saying is needed now, that's really been a game changer for the entire county. Next slide. So I want to take you back, if I could, to late 2014. And Oakland Schools embarked with 2 other counties, Kent and Jackson, on a 5-year grant called Project Aware. And the mission of Project Aware overall was to provide a healthier, safer climate for learning. Specifically, there were 3 goals, and I want to touch on those 3 goals. The first was to increase awareness of mental health issues as exhibited by school-aged youth. The second was to improve the mental health literacy of the adults that interacted with that school-age youth. And the third was to improve collaboration to connect families with mental health services. So as we began to meet as first a small group, then very quickly a much larger group, we of course went to Easter Seals early, and we asked them to bring in their best. They did. We had all of the expertise that we needed to sit at the table and help guide us through this. We also had other community partners. We had the courts, we had government, we had county, we had small agencies, and we grew from there over the next 5 years. We began to look at data. And specifically in looking at the MiFi data, for everyone's probably familiar with MiFi, but that's the Michigan Project for Healthy Youth. And we look specifically at data that comes out of school systems. One district really got our attention. And in Oakland County, beginning in October of the year previous, there's a student suicide in this one particular district. And then every 2 weeks following that suicide, for the rest of that school year, there were at least 2 to 3 more suicidal episodes. It might be a student suicide, it might be an attempt, it might be a student walking down and saying, I need help. But the school wasn't equipped to handle this kind of need. So I approached Easter Seals, and we need to do something. We have to do something. We need professional intervention. We need beyond school counselors, we need help. And when we looked at that, when we looked together at that, it became clear that this was a much bigger issue. It was an issue of systems navigation, and trying to figure out where to go caused us to look critically at the way things were currently. And when we were casting that wide net, specifically after a student suicide, we really understood that we weren't doing the best possible work we could. We needed to bring in the experts, and more than bringing in the experts, we needed the experts to be a part of the school system. So we talked about co-located services. We talked about what it would look like if Easter Seal staff was sitting in the school building and what it would mean for kids to be secure in the fact that there were people there on site that had them. They were safe. They knew if there was something that needed to be navigated from an administrative level, the administrative staff had access to Easter Seals, teachers had access, parents had access, students had access. And that has been a wonderful, wonderful benefit to our school districts. I talk about bench strength a lot, and Mr. Worth just touched on the fact that over 270 licensed clinical staff are available from Easter Seals. When we have tragedies like a student suicide, we often ask for help. And I go to Easter Seals. That's my responsibility at Oakland Schools, to work with a district that's experienced this kind of tragedy. And I go to Easter Seals and I ask them to send in their best. They don't have one or two. We have 270 people that can go at a moment's notice and be available to a school that needs them most. Next slide.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Marilyn, and I believe your other two presenters have now been successfully able to call in.
Great, thank you. Just to wrap up my piece, I think I wanted to make sure that we're talking about a culture shift. I've been with the ISD for 23 years. I was in child welfare for another, I'm really going to date myself, and someone's doing the math on this, and I'm way older than I should be admitting to. But for the longest time, when I would say we are in the mental health business, people in education said, no, you're not. This is education. This is not mental health. I always felt like I was kind of flying my flag in the dark. This is important work. Schools need mental health preparation and support. And of course, now the #1 request from districts is mental health and social emotional support. So that systemic change for our forward positioning, that's where we are. And that's what allows us to move forward with the support, with the expertise of an Easter Seals. I was going to turn this back over to Yuri. I think if you're on speaker now, Yuri?
Yes, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan. So as Susan said, we embarked on this journey in 2015, but I also wanted to highlight that we have always been a strong partner with the schools. And when Oakland Schools came to us with the need for a district, we answered that call. And I also want to highlight, Jen, can you go to the slide about the timeline? Our timeline and our history of how we got to this co-located model and partnerships throughout the state. So over the next 4 years, we were able to co-locate in 11 districts and really refine our approach. And as you'll see, we continue to evolve that approach. And it really is, and you'll hear a lot more about this in future slides, about the culture and the partnership and how we create and refine those collaborative partnerships. So during this time of pre-COVID, I'd like to say that we had always been exploring the use of Telehealth Platform to better enhance our school-based services. This way, districts would have the ability to have a therapist on call, essentially, without us being physically on campus. With COVID, this concept became a reality, and we've definitely enhanced our telehealth services through the pandemic. We were, again, as our CEO discussed, we were able to obtain equipment that we actually have iPads in 7 different schools throughout Oakland County where children can access those services virtually. Also during this time period, and we really as we built our collaborative partnerships, one of the things that we consistently do is our approach uses different tools and data to really tailor those services for the district and really customize services for the students and staff. So we developed a needs assessment, and with the input of most of our partner districts. We also, as you've heard Susan say, we heavily rely on the MiFi data. This really identifies some priority areas for districts. For example, in one of our districts in Oakland County in Clarkston, they had several children who lost their parents. And we were able to provide a group called Children in Change to support that grief and loss. As we embark on this journey further, we also have heard from districts the need for professional development. So we have specifically developed a series based on what districts have identified. And right now that topic is around the impact of psychological trauma and how that impacts social emotional development and strategies to provide staff and support during this pandemic. Next slide. I'm going to hand this over to Jennifer Thayer so she can talk about the process of the culture within the co-located program.
Yuri, did you want to touch on the braided funding quickly?
Sure. So as part of our partnership, we are contracted with most private insurers and Medicaid HMOs and self-pay. So for any of the direct services that we provide, we bill those insurance contracts. We do not bill the school. However, as we moved further along this road with school districts, they identified needs that were not typically covered by insurers, such as the professional development and what we call mental health consultation. So specifically looking at strategies to support teachers and students that have experienced psychological trauma. So we've worked with many of the districts that have identified some dollars to support some of those activities. So one of the activities was around a parenting group for some of the parents in the district, and the school was able to use some of those Title I dollars to support that activity for parent engagement. Another example is we have coalitions that we work with, and the school districts were able to use some of those coalition dollars to provide some substance use prevention groups. So, and one of those groups was our Prime for Life group that served as a prevention and a diversion group. And you'll hear more about that throughout this presentation.
Thanks, Yuri. So this creating a common language, Susan kind of touched on that a little bit, but it's really about, understanding what mental health is and taking that trauma-informed approach. So we thought it was really important that the therapists that were going to be co-located within some of these school districts really can speak that same language as our schools. So one example of how we're doing that would be, I can think of Waterford School District, where they utilize the zones of regulation. So as part of their SEL curriculum. So that was something that I wanted our therapists to have access to, and now she utilizes that in her therapy approaches as well, so that everyone's speaking that same language. We also thought it was important to have our therapists as train the trainers in ASSIST, so applied suicide intervention skills training, as well as Safe Talk, mental health first aid, adolescent mental health first aid, and TSIP, where Easter Seals can come in as that external partner, like Susan talked about, and help with that managing of the crises. Lastly, something that's important too is really matching that therapist based on that district's needs and the individual's needs. So I can think of an example at Western High School, where they specifically had several referrals for African American girls in the high school and requested an African American female therapist, and we were able to provide that and see that connection that was made. For the continuum of support, I really want to touch on Easter Seals utilizing the best practices that are available to us, utilizing evidence-based practices. So we're talking a lot about trauma that's happened over this past year, and having our therapists trained in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as CBITS, which is trauma-focused therapy within the schools, as well as connecting these families with more services as needed. So even if we're co-located in a school and there's more resources and services that are needed, our school team can help link those services to all of those students. So it's open to all of our students that get referred to us. We did touch on the training and professional development, and by far our trauma series has been requested the most, especially this past year. We've also been asked by certain school districts to come in and participate in their staff wellness, talking a lot about mindfulness, some social emotional learning strategies as well. And really that collaborative relationship, which is probably the most important piece of having our partnership with the schools. And it's really about helping the schools identify those champions within their schools, with those champions being, it could be their support team, so your counselors, your social workers, your administrators, could be some of your teachers, really those who can help educate their peers about mental health, about the services that can be provided for both students and staff, as well as just being that go-to person for us at Easter Seals, so that we can have monthly meetings once we get referrals, which has been extremely important. Once we get that referral, that there's a connection and communication. I believe, Heather, you wanted to talk briefly about your experience with the collaborative relationships.
Yep. So, I would say, again, kind of piggybacking off everybody, the importance of having relationships with and community partnerships in the school is really important for us, and certainly I'll explain in detail a little bit later. Having the ability to have a therapist in your building and have the school teams be able to connect with them and meet with them on a regular basis really impacts the consistency of care, and it kind of, bridges the gap for all services. Having administrators, counselors, a designated social worker, and then having someone like Jen Thayer overseeing the program that you can contact at any time, I think that builds trust within the school teams and the agencies as far as how our partnership has worked, building those really strong relationships.
So part of our co-located services, we are truly there as an added resource. We are not there to replace any of the services that are provided in the schools. Part of how we start the whole process of us even having that discussion is we want to talk to the support team first. We want to talk to those counselors, those social workers, and reassure them that we are here as a support, that tier 3 level of support for their students and for staff. And then bring in the staff and have that same conversation. The other thing too is the access to mental health services. This is a offer to anyone. So any students in gen ed, special education, we don't turn any referrals away. If we get a referral and we feel that there's another provider that can provide services to meet the needs of that student, then Easter Seals is going to help make that happen. We've also provided mental health consultation. And more recently, strategies to help support the students and staff. So thinking of maybe some SEL strategies, classroom management, ideas to promote resilience within the staff, and even self-care strategies as part of the mental health consultation. And then, like we talked about, telehealth has really just opened the doors to what we can do, especially in our schools. So even though we're co-located in 11 schools, within those districts, we've been able to expand even more, utilizing iPads. We also have excellent relationships with many of the schools, especially in Oakland County, that the social workers, the counselors, the psychologists on staff, they make space in their own offices. They create that space for the student to come down and help get them set up on a Zoom link, on a telehealth, whatever platform we're using to make that therapy session happen. So I'm very thankful that we've been able to expand and reach more students. So I'll go ahead and turn this over to Heather Wiley.
Okay, so just to kind of give a different understanding, in 2019, we embarked on the partnership and co-location with Easter Seals. And I think, you know, initially we started off with the idea we would try to be successful in one school, 1 day a week, and try to build from that. What we did know in Walled Lake was we had a real barrier as far as our students having the ability and or awareness to access services really within our community. And we definitely knew there was a cultural barrier to our families accessing services. So, you know, when we first started, we really identified that as a need and knew that our families tend to trust the school teams, and we were hopeful that that would help bridge the gap and the barriers to services. So when we first started, just a little bit of a history, in 2019, we started in an elementary building, soon grew to have another therapist in one of our high school buildings 1 day a week. Shortly thereafter, we added another day to one of our elementary schools, where at that time we had 44 referrals, and 28 of those 44 referrals had kids in services. And throughout that timeline, we had 137 students that were referred in our district, with 62 of them receiving services. So that's a pretty significant amount. And I think the amount of students that were receiving services speaks volumes to the trust and partnership that was created, where the families were willing to accept the help and we were willing, you know, we were able to engage. So kind of looking at, you know, obviously 2020 and 2021, we've definitely had to be creative with that, you know, accessing our telehealth options and looking at how we did referrals during COVID in all of our buildings. You know, Easter Seals was wonderful as far as, you know, providing those supports and the iPads that they had received to utilize in one of our elementary buildings and one of our middle school buildings, which is an expansion from 2019. And we plan to add some additional telehealth in the fall. Looking at, again, we had 79 referrals this year, and 34 of those referrals are students that are in services. So there was a little lag, and some of that is, I think, kind of speaks to the amount of students that are still doing virtual work and haven't returned back to have that connection. But really, that's a success rate of 45%, which is really pretty good. You know, one way that, you know, I would say our administration and our school teams really see the impact in the partnership is that, you know, you see the difference in supporting the whole child and the consistency of care between the mental health in the school, and being able to speak the same language and have care plans that everybody can understand and work towards a common goal. We're definitely using referrals as an alternative to suspensions and expulsion. You know, we recognize that mental health plays a big role in what lands kids into some of these circumstances that results in a suspension. You know, it's providing supports to all of our students. You know, we used it this year specifically as a part of our Return to Learn plan, and how we could, you know, identify kids through screeners and have them access mental health. And, you know, we have been using, which is trying to navigate the system for some families when you have a student that's in crisis, getting them in within a timely fashion has been challenging for many. You know, we have had great success supporting our students who are in crisis for emergency intakes and being able to provide some of those suicide assessments and supports to not only, you know, to the parents, to the student and the building team. So just, you know, a few success stories that I wanted to add. And again, I think, you know, we're very fortunate in Walled Lake to have the support of our administration, but really speaking to the, you know, about our community and how we work together, and how Easter Seals has really embraced, you know, working with us, connecting us, eliminating, you know, obstacles for these families. And really we see them as an extension of our school team. You know, there's a story that's shared by one of our social workers who was really the first social worker to have partnered in Guest Elementary. Her name is Adina Canner. She just, I think, really said, you know, we had a hard time getting our families to get in the doors or get past the referral, because sometimes it can be tricky. And the amount of referrals and the consistency of care that she observed with these families was really eye-opening to her. And initially, from a school perspective, we had social workers that were a little bit hesitant to have a school partner or have another social worker in a building, thinking it wouldn't be a shared role. And again, I think that if any district was going to ask about the school social worker's role, they would certainly, our staff would definitely be able to say it's just an extension and an additional support for our students. And, you know, we are definitely seeing progress with all of the mental health needs being addressed. So. And I'm not sure, Jen, if you want to touch on anything else.
I think we are at questions and discussion at this point.
Okay, thank you very much to our Easter Seals guests. Do we have questions or comments from state board members? Questions or comments from state board members? Ms. Lipton.
Yes, thank you so much. That was a really, really very informative presentation. I just want to make sure that that I understand sort of the inroad to services. It sounds like, with respect to the examples you gave, you had a relationship in place with Oakland Schools First, the ISD, and then that provided sort of an on-ramp to particular relationships with schools where the need was determined. Is that the preferred model in terms of having a relationship with the ISD first? And in other words, my one question is sort of best practice, which comes first, the ISD relationship? And then secondly, this is more of a question, I think, probably to the ISD. Are there additional pandemic funds or ESSER funds that the ISD is contemplating for mental health services?
Sure.
So two questions.
Okay. Well, let me take them in a reverse order. As far as the additional funds, I think there are a number of sources that are going to support additional activities. Specifically, there is going to be a lot of attention given to summer programming to help support kids as we transition back into whatever the fall is going to look like. So we know we need some bridge services, and there are a lot of summer institute learning opportunities that are being planned right now to support those kids, and putting funds behind those efforts is where we're focusing a lot of attention right now. Specifically, mental health and emotional well-being have to be at the forefront, and we are 100% committed to doing that. And then if I could just take my first weigh in at the first question, I think what happened in Oakland County was a merge of the ISD having a long-standing relationship with Easter Seals, and with Easter Seals being true partners with us as well as with the districts. So it really wasn't getting to the districts through us or by any way of any contractual arrangement. It was the best sense of partnership, in my opinion. We lift up what's best in each other. And I think one of the things that I so deeply appreciate from Easter Seals is that when there is a school-based initiative, I can count on them to come my way and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this with districts. What do you think? And let's talk about who we need to be in front of, which is how it should happen. And it's great because we do this then as a team. The worst thing that can happen from an ISD perspective is to find out that you've got an agency that's been running in and out of school districts with an idea that isn't fully formed, and we can't be there to help support it. The way that we work with Easter Seals is truly collaborative, and we go in together, if that helps at all. So we do it at the same time.
Yep.
Thank you
Susan,
very
I can
much.
add that
I'm sorry?
I can add to that feels that we are by many individual schools, and what we do is, you know, we definitely have those conversations, and we gauge their to develop that partnership, and we start out with a referral pathway, and then we always do involve the ISD districts to see what their interest level is throughout the district.
Thank you very much. Ms. Tilley.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Brent, so much for coming and bringing your team. You guys did a wonderful job. I think this is a great model, this type of partnership for schools. It fills a need. There are, you know, so many schools that need extra help, you know, social workers, help with mental health issues that they're not getting. They can't, not all school districts can afford to have social workers in every school. So this type of partnership is definitely important. I wanted to know more specifically about the issues with trauma that have gone up during the pandemic. How have you guys been dealing with those issues with students, and what is working? What have you seen?
Do you want the school's perspective or Easter Seals perspective?
Whoever, both would be good.
Sure. So you already touched on it a little bit. So basically, as the needs arise, you know, we step it up. So if there's certain evidence-based practices that my team needs to be trained in, then we make that happen. You know, we really worked hard to prepare over the summer. So myself, I was a part of many of the return of plans, work plans for the schools. And a part of that was kind of preparing for, you know, what do we do with the students when they're coming back? If they're coming back face to face, if they're going to be virtually, what are some things that we can do in the classroom, online? How do we create mindfulness rooms? So a lot of that was a preparation and kind of planning that Easter Seals was a part of with several of our school districts. And then really it's taking those referrals one by one, and helping those families engage in therapy and whatever needs that they have.
If I could just kind of jump in from an ISD perspective, just over the last month and a half, we had 3 instances, all pretty closely back to back to back. There was an act of violence, there was a shooting in one district, and in rapid succession, there were 2 student suicides. Every time I called Easter Seals. Every time I worked with the district and Easter Seals to be the bridge between putting trauma-informed professional staff on the ground to support the district. In one case, it was a very small district, and the district staff were just as impacted as the students, and they needed support. So I know I can get, that's where that bench strength comes in. I know I can get staff there to support adults, administrators, students, community, and it's a combined effort.
You know, Tiffany, this is Brent. I want to add on a little bit to that too. And we all know that mental health and the needs are growing exponentially. And in fact, I just read this article that said, you know, the mental health crisis, the behavioral health crisis, the substance use, the mental health needs remain 3 years after a natural disaster or a pandemic. So we're only really at the beginning of this mental health crisis. And when you think about it, you know, the kids being at home, the parents being at home, the constant starts, the stops, the lack of socialization, you know, it's only going up. You know, this presentation is not about Easter seals. This presentation is really about the partnership of how the community can partner with the school district to make things happen. There are a lot of great providers in our state, but it's kind of, when we talk about the culture and breaking down those perceptions or barriers, you know, the providers aren't looking to take over any of the school district's responsibility or roles. We're just trying to wrap around together to best serve the students. And, you know, that if we can embrace that culture to meet the needs, I mean, they're only growing and there's only so much money, but if we can, you know, if it takes a little bit of fundraising, it takes a little bit of bill and insurance, it takes a little bit of grants, you know, to make it work, you know, we're here to do the right thing. And there's lots of providers out there. So that's really the biggest push for me is it, you know, that people talk about it takes a village. I mean, it truly does. You know, the schools can't do it alone. We can't do it alone. No one can do anything alone, but together we can do our best. And so, and the need is just growing. And so it's going to be there for a long time coming.
Thank you,
This is
guys.
Heather from Walled Lake Schools. I just wanted to maybe piggyback off of what Brett just said in regards to, and there was a slide about one of our parent conversations. She, you know, her son was getting released from a residential placement and had called all over to get, you know, a step down program and was really unsuccessful. The first day that he started school, we made a referral and he was able to get in to see a provider the next day. So that was really critical to his, you know, treatment. And I think we continue to see that where we have kids coming to school that have needs that are greater than we've ever seen, and that we need to be able to support our staff also in giving them the opportunity to provide the services that are needed. So not only for our, you know, Jen Thayer has been amazing too in supporting some of our staff, so they don't really pigeonhole it into one place. I mean, we have had teachers, you know, as well that have had to access, you know, resources, and that has been a very comfortable situation as well.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. This is something that has been of great concern to the state board, especially during the pandemic. You know, we are fully aware that PTSD, anxiety, depression, suicide have all gone up during the pandemic, and we definitely worry about our students and what options they have in the school district. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Ms. Tilley. Other questions or comments? I'd just like to dovetail off of something that Mr. Worth said. He noted that the demands were burgeoning. They are. There's no question about that. I do think it bears mentioning, though, that we weren't meeting need pre-pandemic, that we were chasing need pre-pandemic, and then the pandemic hit. The good news is that more people are conscious of the need. The bad need is that the need has moved. It has become substantially greater. So as an awakening, this has been a helpful moment, but it has really shaken up our ability to provide services for young people. And it's going to take a number of years of concerted effort to fully serve our young people. And it's going to require an awakening from our state legislature, which only recently has begun to fund children's mental health in the state of Michigan. It's only in the last few years that the state of Michigan has dedicated anything via Section 31N to children's mental health in the state of Michigan. So we're late to the game, and we're addressing a pandemic at the same time. We appreciate Easter seals. To your point that there are many outstanding providers, you are clearly among them, and we appreciate that. And we appreciate all 5 of you coming and working your way through technical difficulties to present to us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I just wanted to end on one last note. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and you can take a free screening here at this location. And so far this year, we've had 1,000 people take the screening, and over 73% have needed additional services and supports that needed. So, you know, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help. Mental health matters. And if you would like to take a free screening, please come here. Thank you. Thanks again for having us. Thank you.
Dr. Rice, I think there's one more comment from Ms. Snyder.
Okay, I beg your pardon. I didn't see that in the chat. Ms. Snyder.
I was just going to ask, sorry, let me flip my camera up here. What was typically before the pandemic, the school policy, whether it be local or the department, on how to handle mental health issues or students that we might have considered needed a referral before that weren't handled through the home or parents or private insurance? And I only asked that question just because that last comment, Michael, was just a little off base. I want to say I don't want to politicize mental health with the legislature, because it was typically something we considered to be a part of the healthcare system. And that's why the comments on, you know, waving my flag in the dark, I appreciated what she had to say, because there is a cross intersection to some degree. And I think the conversation will continue to develop as we move forward, and what roles parents play, the importance of the conversation in those cross sections will continue to, I think, be discovered. But to not politicize it, to take that out of the situation, I think we should do that. So my curiosity is, what was, like you said, there was a need. What was our response? And clearly we've just heard a presentation on how we're trying to change that.
So from an ISD perspective, when you're looking at, for Oakland, just example, 28 different districts, 28 different practices, and it really comes down to practice more than policy, because there's so many variables. If you have a student who talks to a teacher and says, I'm thinking about hurting myself, that's really clear cut forward. You know what to do. But if you have a student that just said, I'm really sad all the time and I don't know why, we want to make sure, and this is an ongoing issue. You're absolutely right. It's a then issue. It's a now issue. It's a forward issue. How do we get teachers, administrators, the training that they need so that they can understand and identify how to connect students to appropriate resources, whether it be a co-located service model, the school counselor, or just reaching out to family to involve them. Getting that awareness is something that really hasn't been done. And if I don't want to keep coming back to suicide, but it's a really easy example to use, if you'll forgive my calling it anything around the word easy, because the training is easy to get to teachers, and it's imperative that we get them that training. Because as someone who is educated as a psychologist, I'm here to tell you that it wasn't that long ago when we absolutely educated psychologists to stay away from asking folks if they're thinking about suicide or if they're thinking about killing themselves. We talked about, you're not thinking about doing anything crazy, you're not thinking about doing anything rash. So now that we can use that language, that common language that we've all been talking about today, getting administrators, teachers, the crossing guard, the bus driver, everyone educated about Safe Talk or other nationally recognized models, that's where a partnership like an Easter Seals with the schools goes to your point, I believe.
Yeah. So a few things, just again, that cross intersection that just sort of took place with what you said. And I think that this happens with nurses even, and in various industries, that when we need to gather awareness and we need to do educator training or nurse training, this happened not too long ago in healthcare with sex trafficking, right? We never used to ask the kind of questions we ask now, but that happened because we have efforts like this. And then just again, echoing something else you just said about making sure that involving parents, I don't want it to be a periphery thing, but it's like an immediate, it's the first step, I would say, outside of obvious emergencies, if you will. And then just thank you for what you guys do and your presentation here. And just a strong word of caution to just stay away from politicizing it like we just did with statements like being late to the game. I don't want anybody to not be able to enter the conversation when we politicize it that way. So thank you very much, and we'll just keep moving forward together.
Any other questions or comments? I think a couple of our board members may be having trouble with the comments and with the chat. And if so, if you could just beam into camera view and raise your real hand rather than your virtual hand, that would help to be recognized. We want everybody to get their metaphorical oar in the water. Relative to Michigan being late in the game, it wasn't a political statement. It was simply a statement. We were late to fund children's mental health. We didn't begin to fund children's mental health until a few years ago. That's a statement of fact. That's not a politics, it's fact. Mental health issues have been stigmatized, not simply in Michigan, but across the country. It's not a political statement, it's a fact. And for many, there was a concern about addressing children's mental health issues in schools. It was perceived by some erroneously as mission creep. And then there are those that don't necessarily see children's mental health issues either as issues or see them at all. So those are all areas in which we need to grow as a state and as a country. That's not a political statement, and it's certainly not a partisan statement. It's just real. And mental health providers and educators across the country will tell you very much the same thing. Dr. Pugh, a question to you. Dr. Pugh, are you with us? Dr. Pugh, are you on mute? Okay, I don't see or hear Dr. Pugh, but I hear question. It's almost like a virtual Amelia Earhart outreach.
I am here. I'm
There
here.
we
Can
go.
you guys, okay, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. And you may have already answered the question, and I may have had issues. My question was around this secondary trauma and the things that you are doing with educators. And you might have said this already, but the type of reflective supervision opportunities that you all are providing to address on a very routine basis the needs of teachers.
So I can speak to that. So more recently we've started some mental health consultation, and that truly is whatever that staff member, that teacher is reaching out to us for consultation for. Secondary traumatic stress can be one of those things. So really it's about helping them address if there's secondary traumatic stress, and then helping refer them to getting resources and help for themselves. Heather Wiley mentioned that that she's had staff that have been able to seek out mental health services through our partnership with their school district. So really that's what mental health consultation is about. It's about having that brief consultation, helping them kind of address what the issue is at hand, and then helping link them to further resources.
Is there anything that's more ongoing, like it's like a set time where there might be groups that come in together, that way that they're able to learn from one another and really reflect on some of the things that have happened in a very safe environment in that way? I guess that's the reflective supervision that I'm thinking of. I'm just thinking that those are things that and let me say this, I heard parts of what Dr. Rice said. Yes, we have long known, those of us, especially, you don't have to be in public health to know that these are needs that have long been necessary. And now everybody's in a crisis. You know, many of us have seen districts and students and certain populations be in crisis, and now it's been compounded. But these are things that we've tried and practiced and have been very helpful means of having professionals sharpen one another, as well as having that emotional unloading. And it's not something that they have to think about, do I call for help? But it's just something that's already there and is set in place.
I'm not sure if Yuri could hear or not either, but I know that Yuri she has another manager that is working on exactly what you're talking about, and having that support group for teachers, for them to come in and, you know, hear from each other's experiences and learn from each other, and to get that support. I'm not sure if that's up and running yet. I remember seeing a flyer that was coming out. So that is something that we also see as a need. The other thing I wanted to mention too is, we've had some school districts that I've even said, you know, do you have an EAP? Have you been able to reach out to your EAP and see if they can help provide, you know, that sort of support for your staff? And we've had some districts that never even thought of that, that now are utilizing, you know, their EAP as well, so that they can get that support for their staff.
And Jen, just to add, I heard, I don't know if you can hear me, but yes, we actually have a reflective supervision group that we started for early childhood teachers, and early Head Start programs throughout the state.
Awesome. Thank you. That was it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pugh. Anything more from board members? Thank you very much for our presentation. Great job. Very enlightening. Have a great day, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Board, we are at approval of minutes of regular and committee of the whole meeting of April 13th, 2021. Maryland has sent you those minutes via email. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular and committee of the whole meeting of April 13th, 2021?
Move to approve.
So move.
I have a motion and I believe a second, which was a nose away from the first. Any discussion? Roll call vote. I'm sorry. Yes, please. Discussion.
I have not seen them.
I believe that they were sent via email.
To the Michigan email address?
Yes. Yes, they were sent to the Michigan, and they were relinked. The correct version was relinked to the agenda. So if you've got the agenda there,
okay,
it's item E.
The link does not appear to be working. The
nope.
First link was to the, I believe, March 9th minutes, and it looks like that part has been fixed, but now the link says page not found, at least on mine. I did refresh it as well.
All right, I'm going to resend the morning email with the minutes, so you won't need to go into the link. You'll just be able to see the minutes, and then I don't know if you want to come back to that, Dr. Rice, or how you want to handle that.
Sure, we can do the president's report and then pivot back to the meeting minutes. That's fine. And we can even, if need be.
Goes to the April minutes for me. I don't know.
Well, let me, for the benefit of the people that are not able to access the link, I think we're having technology trouble today. I am going to email to your Michigan.gov account a PDF version of the minutes so that you have the opportunity to see them before you vote.
Okay. Let's just pause and take a moment to get those meeting minutes, reflect upon them. Okay. Has everyone received the minutes? Has anyone not received the minutes? Okay. Let's start fresh. Can I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April 13th?
So moved.
Okay, so I have a motion from Mr. McMillan. Do I have a second?
Support.
Support from Dr. Pritchett. Any discussion associated therewith? Hearing none. All in favor? Nope. Roll call vote. I beg your pardon.
Lipton,
Yes.
McMillan,
Yes.
Pritchett,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
Snyder,
Yes.
Strayhorn,
Yes.
Tilly,
Yes.
Albrecht.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Very good. Thank you very much. Report of the president, Dr. Albrecht.
In the interest of time, I will forgo a report with the exception of reminding everyone that we are still awaiting legislative action on accountability measures based on standardized testing, and it would be extremely disappointing if the legislature did not act on this. It's a bipartisan issue, and I hope that we can report on action soon. Thank you.
Thank you, President Albrecht. I'll forego my report as well. I got my oar substantially in the water earlier in the morning. The next item on today's agenda is the state and federal legislative update. Mr. Martin Ackley, Director of the Office of Public and Governmental Affairs, will begin this presentation, and then we'll move to Legislative Committee Chairperson Ellen Lipton, if she has any remarks, and finally to Dr. Pritchett for a Nasby report, if she has one. Mr. Ackley.
Thank you, Dr. Rice, and good afternoon, board members. Both the Senate and the House today are moving their budgets the whole way. Their second and third reading, they're moving them out, both the supplemental bills and also for the to appropriate funds for the COVID, the federal COVID dollars, and also the budgets for next fiscal year. So they're moving them all the way through each house, the first house. So the Senate bills, the Senate is passing their Senate bills and the House passing their budget, House budget, and they'll go to the other house. This is in prelude to the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference next Friday. So they want to get their budgets passed and in the other house so that when the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference meets next Friday and they get a better idea of what the revenues look like for the next fiscal year, they can work from there. So there are differences between the House and the Senate. There are points of difference. So unless, usually the process is each house passes its own budget, then it goes to the other house and then they pass it back and it goes to conference committee to reconcile the differences. There have been years when an agreement has just been made and they avoid a conference committee and they can just agree to a budget and then pass the bills that way. And of course, there's still dealing with the disagreements with the governor. And there are certain tie bars, especially in the House bill and the House budget, tie barring bills that would limit the governor's authority in the for the administrative board. The House budget also, with the department budgets, they put them into quarters like they did with our budget 2 years ago. They did that with every department in the state government. So there's that. There are those conflicts between the House and the Senate version. So we hope that those differences are met or are figured out. The House Education Committee did meet and reported some bills out over the past couple of weeks. House Bill 4293 and 94. It's a package to allow school employees who are not teachers to substitute teach if they have a high school diploma and are employed by the district. This is to help alleviate problems with filling substitute teacher roles. They would not be subject to collective bargaining agreements, so a person who works in the district who has a high school diploma can come in as a substitute teacher. Those bills are on the House floor now. There are also bills in the House and the Senate that would exempt districts from emergency orders by DHHS when it comes to high school graduation ceremonies. So that would exempt, if a district wanted to exempt themselves from a local or a statewide emergency order, public health, then they could do that for graduation ceremonies. The House bill passed and the Senate bill passed, and they're in the other houses. And so they were all passed on party lines. And then also Senate Bill 118 has passed and is sent to the governor yesterday. That would reduce the salary penalty for insufficient credentials for for teachers and for administrators to 50%. Currently, it's 100% penalty if a teacher or an administrator is not sufficiently certified. And what this does is that for once it's discovered, the penalty is only 50% unless it's rectified. If it's not rectified in 10 days, and it goes back to 100% penalty. And then it always also gives the state superintendent some flexibility on relieving some of that penalty also. So that's on its way to the governor. We expect the governor to sign that. And that's what I have. Like I said, the big news is going to be the Senate and the House budgets coming out today, and we will they'll be included. Stories will be included in the News to Know Today tomorrow, and we will send you all the analyses once those budgets are passed by their houses. Dr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Ackley. President Aldrich, to your nonverbal question, we are not supportive of the sub-teacher bill as currently written. We've tried to.
I try to hide my face, but sometimes
we've tried to improve upon it. It is better, but still not at a point where the department is supportive of it. Other questions, either implied or explicit? Ms. Lipton, is this a question or is this to your report?
This is a question.
Okay.
I just had a quick question for Mr. Ackley. Did the, number one, do you expect they're going to call a conference committee? I assume so, because of the fact that they have bills that are, not identical. So it sounds to me like they're going to have to call a conference committee. But number two, did they do budgets rolled up again this year, or did they go back to doing separate department budgets, unrolled up budgets?
They are not. They are rolled up. There's a one budget, I believe, for all for the departments, and there's a separate budget for the K-12 budget.
Okay, so they're still doing rolled up budgets. Okay, so
yeah, and to your other question, there's several steps before a consensus, a conference committee, and like I said, sometimes they go to conference and sometimes they just come to an agreement. If everybody can come to an agreement on a budget, then they can just substitute the bills out on the floor of the House or Senate and pass it over and avoid a conference committee. That's possible.
Okay.
That's happened in the past.
Okay, all right. I mean, yeah, okay. I mean, typically, yeah, okay, thank you.
Typically it goes to conference, but there.
Well, also, yeah, procedurally, there's only an up or down vote on a conference bill. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions or comments? Legislative update. Questions or comments? We were supportive with the of the change in penalties around violations of teacher or administrative certification law. We worked very closely with Senator McBroom and his staff over the better part of a year, and we're very pleased to see a change in state law. We felt that the law was overly onerous, that there should be penalties around violation of certification law, but that they should not be draconian penalties. And we feel that this really meets that balance. Other questions or concerns, comments? Going once, twice, thrice. Thank you, Mr. Ackley. We are on to Chairwoman Lipton.
Thank you, Dr. Rice. Because of scheduling challenges, the Legislative Committee was not able to meet prior to today's meeting. We do have a meeting scheduled toward the end of this month, I do believe. We do have a number of items outstanding that we will bring to hopefully our June meeting for action by the board. And I would also encourage everyone, including the members of the Legislative Committee, to continue to think about issues that they would like to explore in the Legislative Committee and send those directly to Dr. Rice and copy Mr. Ackley. I am keeping a running list of issues, and since the frequency of our meeting and the length of our meetings is always constrained, it's best if we have a plan and an agenda in place when we do meet so that we can get through items as quickly as possible. I do note that I do believe that one or more members of the Legislative Committee had an experience testifying in front of one or more legislative committees, and if any of these members wish to supplement this report discussing their experience in testifying in front of the legislature, I would welcome that. Otherwise, I do not have anything additional to report on.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairwoman Lipton. We go to Dr. Pritchett for a Nasby report.
Very quick Nasby report. We continue in Nasby to work in a subcommittee for public education policies. We are looking to add 4 different policies to the main policy statements of NASB. And so we work through that process once a month. The annual conference is in October. I apologize, I can't remember the dates, or I'm not sure they've given us specific dates yet. There still has not been a decision made as to whether that's going to be in person, virtual, or a combination. My best guess right now is it'll probably be a combination for the annual conference. So, and that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Pritchett. Anything else for the good of the group on the Legislative Committee report? Going once, twice, and thrice. Hearing and seeing none. Comments by State Board of Education members. Would any State Board of Education member care to comment? Because we've had a little bit of trouble in the chat today. If you would like to comment, if you are putting something in the chat, if you're not getting acknowledged, if you could raise your literal hand, as opposed to simply your figurative one, or your virtual one, that would be great. We want to acknowledge you. Okay, very good. Hearing and seeing no one. Future meeting dates are Tuesday, May 18th, the work session.
You have Dr. Pugh would like to make a comment.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Dr. Pugh.
I'm sorry, moving slow. Just quickly, I just wanted to mention that we had an opportunity to talk to the Benton Harbor community via a Zoom session with one or a few of their board members or community members. And just want to thank Ellen as well as board member Tilly for joining me in that session. I also just want to say that, as we move towards celebrating 55% of the general population that has been vaccinated, that we also have to think about those subpopulations. We still have, according to Michigan Department of Health and Human Services data, the last that I looked, which I believe was this morning, maybe late yesterday, that we have less than 4% of the African American population, less than 2% of Native American population, and less than 0.2 of Native American population, and less than 1.4% of our Latino population that have been vaccinated. So that's somewhere, if somebody's adding that up, less than 6% of our BIPOC community, Black, Brown, Indigenous, people of color who have been vaccinated according to that data. Of course, we have a small percentage of unknowns, but it still is a low count. So when we think about this illness, it is still very real. We have to still be considerate of educators as well as parents who are concerned. I've received my second vaccination, and we definitely promote everyone getting their vaccination and believing that is our best way to deal with this very real world crisis. So I just wanted to point those things out. And then a lot of great information that was shared this morning, Dr. Rice, as far as all hands on deck and not leaving anything off the table as far as how are we addressing our teachers. Because we know that our teacher shortage is also making sure, is again, a lot of the things that we've talked about today are issues that have been just greatly compounded by this virus, but have long existed. And now we are dealing with it. And so it is good to see that we are taking the approaches that we're taking and moving it from all directions to be able to address the needs of our educators, the educator shortage that will hopefully be addressed by thinking about teachers and then also making sure that we're doing whatever we can to get additional teachers certified. So improving those environments that our teachers nurture our children in, but then also making sure that we're addressing the shortage and trying to attract other teachers or existing teachers. So good to hear those efforts that are underway.
Thank you, Dr. Pugh. One last call for comments or anything from state board members. Hearing and seeing none. Tuesday, May 18th, we have a work session. Tuesday, June 8th, a regular meeting, and Tuesday, August 10th, a regular meeting, all at 9:30. There is no July meeting of the State Board of Education. It is the 1 month of the year where there are typically no state board meetings. If there are any topics board members would like included in future meeting agendas, please notify Marilyn or me. Let the record show that it is 2:50 and that we are once again giving you back the gift of time. Have a great day, board members. Have a great day, community. Thank you.